Hey everyone, welcome to this tutorial. I'm going to go over setting up a CineShooter Plus with KOS to Unreal Engine. Just a heads up, I don't claim to be the expert pro at all of this, so there's a lot of different ways that you can go about doing things in Unreal. I'm just going to simply show you what I've learned and what works for me. So I'll probably do some more tutorials with this. I want to get set up to where we're going from scratch to having everything up and running. There's a couple topics I'm probably not going to hit on that I will do follow-up tutorials, and some areas where I'll probably do a more in-depth tutorial on a specific issue. But for now, pretty much we're just going to kind of go through and do the whole setup of a CineShooter Plus with Unreal Engine. At this point, I assume you already have a CineShooter Plus and it's connected and it's ready to go. You're going to USB connect that thing in. Make sure that your USB connection is active. So if you go in, actually when you go to settings of the CineShooter, you're going to see that there's a option for Wi-Fi or USB. I set it up with USB because I think Wi-Fi is kind of sketch on stuff like this, especially when I'm doing like multi or day or multi-week shoots. So you're going to have all that connected. You're also going to have the latest version of KOS, and also you're going to want to have Unreal Engine installed on your machine. And we're just going to go ahead and start and say you need to get the Epic Games Launcher, which is this. So what you want to do is go to Google and just search Epic Games Launcher, go find it, download it, install it. Once you have it on, it's going to take you to the main page. Will probably look like this. You're going to have an option. You should have an option up here to install Unreal Engine. If not, you go over to the library, and in here you'll be able to find the different engine versions, and you can install whichever one you want to do with. I'm going to be using 5.3.2, not 5.4.1. And the reason for this is sometimes when I first start out with a brand new version, some of the assets I have might not be compatible right out the gate, and it seems like after a couple weeks things kind of smooth out. So generally I don't go to the newest one immediately. So we're going to be using 5.3.2 on this. So once you get it and download it, and that's going to take some time to download it. It's probably going to take at least an hour, maybe two. Well, not just download, but also install it. And it doesn't matter how fast your computer is. It's just going to take forever. Once you have that, you're going to go ahead and you're going to want to launch it. And you're going to wait for it to go ahead and start up. It takes a moment for this to load. And then from here, we're going to start a whole new thing, right? We're not going to pick on any of these. Plus, these are all 4.2.7. I can't run those with 5.3.2 anyway. We're going to go to Film, Video, Live Events, and we're going to select on Virtual Production, and I'm going to name this. Let's get rid of that. CineShooter KOS Unreal. And I'm going to go ahead and hit Create, and this is going to build the project. We'll give that a few minutes. Okay, and here we have our nifty level. This is just kind of a template level, something that, to have something to start with. But generally, I don't even use these. So what I'm going to do is we're going to go up to Edit, and we're going to Project Settings. Wait, no, sorry, don't want that. Going to Edit, and we're going to go to Plugins. We need to make sure we have all the plugins in place. So first, we're going to look for Live Link, and we're going to make sure that Live Link is enabled. We're going to want to make sure Live Link over NDisplay is enabled. It's going to want me to restart it, but we can wait on that. And we also want to make sure Live Link 3D are enabled, and just hit yes for that. Okay, and then we're going to want to do NDisplay. You're going to want to make sure that is enabled, so that's good. And then we're going to go to Switchboard. Oops. And we're going to want to make sure Switchboard is enabled. And once you get those enabled, we're going to go ahead and do Restart Now and restart the program. Okay, and now that we're back, we're going to go ahead and close out the Plugins panel. And Content Browser. Okay, so if you look at your screen, if you don't have the content drawer open, go down here on the bottom left side and hit it. I generally recommend to just dock this in the layout like this, because you're going to be in here quite a bit. But now we go, so now we have our very first level, and we're not going to really do anything with this one because I want to have a little bit more of a fun environment, and I want to show you how the marketplace works. So what we're going to do is we're going to go over to the Epic Games Launcher, and we're going to go over to the marketplace. And once you're in here, you can search for all kinds of different things. They've got a free portion here of just stuff you can grab, a lot of Megascan, stuff like that. Also look into Quixel Bridge. I'm not going to be covering that tutorial on this one, but definitely look into Quixel Bridge. But what we have on here under free, one fun thing to look for is free for the month, and just set yourself a reminder every month, because I managed to get, you know, several different assets. This one was a $59, this was a $100, and this was $199. So, I mean, about $360 worth of assets. I got all those for free. So I just grabbed them. We also have like a grab system and advanced flock system. That's not exactly something I need for my work. At least I haven't found out how to use those yet. So just go ahead and make sure you set that and get those every month. And you can also just search, like if you want to find something like Glacier, just do a search. And here's Glacier National Park, you know, different kind of interesting things, ice effects, Arctic cliffs, you know, this is environment. So you can go in here and you can just buy these, you know, and have a really cool backdrop. So there's a lot of this stuff that you can get, and it's not terribly expensive. Some of them get up there a little bit. But once you have bought whatever it is you want or acquired whatever you want, go over to library, and then down in here you're going to have all your projects that you have open or that you're running, or just projects that you have. And then down here, these are all the different things that I have purchased. And some of them are free, some of them I purchased, but, you know, Old Western Town, procedural biomes, an oak forest, you know, and a lot of these are very high quality. So what we're going to do is we're going to add one of these projects or one of these levels into our project, and I'm going to go do something fun. I want to do something kind of fun to look around in. I've been filming a lot of mushrooms lately, so let's do some deep elder caves. So I'm going to go to Add to Project, and I'm going to select the project we're working on and click Add to Project. And now this is going to sit there and fill up. In fact, it's already on my project, I believe. Yep, Deep Elder Caves. So if yours, when you do the add project, if that takes a lot of time, don't be alarmed. I think the reason it went quick is I had already added this in like earlier, I think. Not exactly sure. Don't really care. So we're going to go into the Deep Elder Caves, and we're going to look for the maps. You know, you got materials, meshes, particles, textures, all these different things. We're going to go to maps, and I'm going to go into the demo level. Overview levels usually have all the different components broken out, like on a big tray, you know, so you can kind of see everything individually. But there's often there'll be a level that's already pre-configured, and you can kind of go in and check out. So we're just going to open this one up. Sometimes this can take a little bit of time. Okay, we're going to clear, get rid of that. Cool, don't care. So it's still doing some of the lighting and everything, and you can kind of see in here. It's a nice, neat little level. And all these light bulbs, we don't need any. I don't want to look at any of that. So I'm going to hit G, which gets rid of the gizmos, because these are actually just different points of light that you can use to adjust the lighting however you want it. But I don't want to look at those right now. So I'm going to hit G in order to kind of clear it out, and we'll kind of look at what we have here. You're generally going to want to come through, and when you load a level like this, and kind of get an idea of exactly what's all over here. Because you see here we got like a whole bunch of cinema camera actors. I'm going to get rid of all of those because we're going to be using the ones that I'm going to build. And camera, take all of these. I'm going to delete these as well. And I see there's a lot of fog in here, and it's more than I want. So I'm going to look up and just look up fog. And then the general exponential height fog, and that's what it is. So we're just going to bring this down a little bit. I think that's better. I don't want to see that much fog at the moment. And we got all these things like particles and stuff like that. So if I was going to be doing a time lapse in this one, I would need to either figure out how to make these particles move incredibly slow, or I just need to shut them off. And it's not hard to do stuff like that. So like in here, particles. All right, so if I just hit this little eye, they all shut off. So if I don't want to have those in my scene at all, boom, no problem. We're going to go ahead and leave those in there for the moment, just because we can do like live moves with the Kessler system in Unreal. So now that I got my level, you know, I'm feeling pretty good about that. What I need to do is I need to build out what's called the NDisplay. Now basically this is going to be the portal into the real world between with the Unreal world. So we're going to basically, you can't see it on the screen here, but I've got my Cineshooter aimed at a 55-inch TV. That's what I'm going to be using to generate the backdrops. And we'll get to see a little bit more of that a bit later. But the thing I'm going to do is I want to build that TV in this world, and then I want to associate the camera to that TV, or to the camera, to the real camera in the real world. So we're just going to kind of build all that out. So we're going to go back over to content here. I like to keep everything starting in this base folder. I'm going to do a right click, and I'm going to look for NDisplay. Now, if you don't see NDisplay, that means that the plugin's not active. So go install that plugin and then come back to this. So we're going to click on NDisplay config. We're going to do create a new config and finish, and then here it is, NDisplay config. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to double click this, and it's going to bring open the NDisplay config, and I'm going to pull this out. I'm going to redock it up here so I can go back and forth between the demonstration level and the NDisplay. So this is my display right here. This is going to be what I'm going to program this thing out, or fill out the criteria to where it matches the dimensions of the screen that I'm using. Okay, and that's this NDisplay screen here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change this. I'm going to lock the scale so it locks the perspective, and then I know that mine is 121 centimeters across. That's what we're looking at, centimeters. And you see it expanded to 56.2. Actually, it's 121. And then the 67.8 or something. So this is good enough to be to match up just fine. Now, if you look over here, this is the default viewpoint. This is what your camera, this is the location of your camera to the screen when everything is at its 0 point, all right? So this is the home position for the camera. And right now we see we have that elevated up, and I'm going to get rid of that. We're just going to go to 0. We're going to drop that down. And then I'm going to look at the screen, and I know that I need to sync my screen down, right? So if I go to the 0 height with the screen, you see it's going to pop all the way through this plane and be perfectly in the middle. And if my camera was set dead smack in the middle of that screen when it comes to height and width, that would be perfect, but it's not. So I actually need to raise this up about 10 centimeters. So over here you see 10, and this more accurately displays the position of my camera within relation to the screen. So when you're setting up in the real world, that's where you want it. Now, I also know that my camera is, I'm not exactly sure how far it is from the screen, so we're going to measure that, okay? So I'm going to take my measuring tape, I'm going to put it, hit the screen with it, and it's about 58 centimeters from the screen. The focal plane, or not focal plane, the sensor itself is about 58 centimeters away. So we're going to go back to the NDisplay screen, and we're going to change this to 58 centimeters. And now this is pretty much the setup that I have with the CineShooter. So the CineShooter is on a slider that's going back and forth in front of this, and that's the screen. So that's what we need to get built. If you have a really complex setup like multiple screens, or you're using like those panels and building it out, and it's not a standard rectangle shape that can be represented like this, then you have to go get that 3D mapped. And then you can import it as a mesh, and I really just don't know. That's not what I do, so you would look up a different tutorial for that. So now what we want to do is build out the render clip node. So we're going to go down here to cluster, and we're going to hit add, and we're going to add a new cluster node. And I am only doing this in 1080p. I avoid having my camera focus hit the screen because it'll create more patterns. So I've never quite focused on it, so that extra resolution really doesn't make any difference because everything's going to be blurred anyway. So this kind of makes it a little bit easier on my processor. Just keep in mind, right now what I'm using is this is an older PC, and it's got a Ryzen chip. I'm not exactly sure which one, but the graphics, the GPU on this is a 1080 Ti, so it's a bit older, but you'll see that it handles it fairly well. So the host IP address, this is going to be the IP address of the machine that's going to be rendering this, okay? So if you're just using one computer, you can either enter your IP on this, or you can just use the IP of home, which is 127.0.0.1, and that means send traffic to itself. So we're just going to go ahead and add this, and then we're going to go over to VP, and then we're going to come over onto this side and go to the projection policy and go from simple to mesh. And then we're going to do mesh to NDisplay screen. Now you can see we see the backdrop in front of it now. Well, or we see the backdrop here. So that's set up correctly. The next thing that we're going to want to do is add the in-camera effects camera. So you're going to go up to components over here and do add, and go down to IC VFX camera and click on that, and that's going to bring this in. Okay. So we don't have a cinema camera actor to tie to this just yet, but just a couple things. I'm going to go ahead and up the interfrustum screen, or the overscan. This is basically gives you a little bit of buffer on the outside of your window for what the camera sees, because the screen is trying to just show it only what the camera needs to see. And this is because if you're working on a big Hollywood set, you got a bunch of actors and actresses up out on the stage, and if everything is moving to match this camera, they're all going to get nauseous and start vomiting pretty quick. So they developed it to where it'll just show the little window of only of what this camera can see, and the rest of it will be static. So that little window, I like to give it a 1.2% overscan, and it's just going to make that window a little bit bigger to correct for any errors that you have in the positioning of your camera. So that's good. And we're going to go ahead and go to compile and save, and we're going to go back to the demonstration, and we are going to take the NDisplay, and we're just going to drag it in here. And let me hit G. G turns on and off the gizmos. The gizmos are these characters that we see representing whatever we're working with. So the next thing we need to do is add in a cinema camera. So we're going to go to this little quick add to the project. We're going to go down to cinematic, and we're going to go to cinema camera actor. And then we're going to take the cinema camera actor, and we need to drop it into the NDisplay config. So just a heads up, if you open up a level and it's got a ton of stuff and it's all in the main level, you see that things aren't tucked nicely in here to where you can make them smaller, it can be a real challenge to get the NDisplay or the cinema camera tossed into the NDisplay. So you might have to go in and just select a whole bunch of stuff and add them to a folder just to get them out of the way, because what you can do is grab it and drag it and drop it onto NDisplay, and you'll see that it sits here down and in the NDisplay. Now the reason you need to make that parent-child relation is that the NDisplay has its own 0 point, okay, which is that default viewpoint. The cinema camera, we want it to be anchored to the 0 point of the NDisplay, because right now it's way out in a different location. But if I zero this, watch, it pops right over that camera. It's exactly where we need it to be. So the 0 point for this will always be within the 0 point of the NDisplay, and then that way we can move the NDisplay and the camera moves along with it, and you don't get anything jumping around that you don't want. So we're going to go ahead and lift this up a little bit. Maybe we'll give this a rotate. So when you're moving objects within Unreal, you can use the W and E and R key. If you have W, it's this for moving, with the whatever the hell you call this thing. And then the E is for rotate, right? So I can grab it here and I can rotate and shift this and aim it wherever I want. And then R is for expanding and contracting, so making things bigger and smaller, just in case you want to make some trees bigger or some rocks smaller or something like that. So now that we have all this, what we need to do is we need to make sure that the NDisplay, if we look down in here, you see all these are the same things if you're up in here, right? So the components within this you're going to see over here. So, and if you click on it, these are all the attributes of the in-camera VFX camera. So if I go over to here and I select it, this the same attributes you see here. So we can access everything, all the components of the NDisplay right here, and then this reflects all the information for them. So if we go to this in camera VFX and we scroll down, we're looking for cinema camera actor and it says none. So I'm going to change that to cinema camera, which is the one we brought in. And that's why I deleted all those other cameras earlier, because I don't want them getting in the way and confusing things, because I'm only using one camera here. Okay, and then that's that. It is, let's see, if we move the camera, cinema camera, let's move it around a little bit. You can see that little display in the middle, that screen moving and getting bigger and smaller. If we go left and right, you're going to see it moving left and right. So that's what the camera's supposed to see. Now in this case, I am using a 16 millimeter lens. Okay, so I need a much bigger frustum than what I'm getting on this. Okay, so let's go down into the cinema camera actor right here, and then we're going to go down and we're going to let's bring this up and give ourselves a little bit more working room. We're going to go to film back and we're going to set that for Super 35 because this is on a Blackmagic cinema camera, and then we're going to go to the current focal length and I'm going to change that to 16. And you'll see now that that window inside there is much larger. So it's going to match the field of view of a 16 millimeter. And then I'm going to change the aperture. Actually, I'm just going to leave it at 2.8. I'm just going to shoot at 2.8 with the camera. And then you also have, if you want to check the focus, I always go in here and just type in focus. And now you can set the manual focus. So right now at 100,000 centimeters, that means that it's at infinity. I'm going to go ahead and change this to 30 centimeters. And what you will see is that it's going to have a softer presentation on here. In fact, if we go to this, and let's go ahead and bring this up really close. You see it gets blurrier in here, right? So that's showing you the depth of field. So we're just going to put that back at 30 because it's about the distance between my camera and what will eventually be as subject. And I feel pretty good about that. And also one thing that I do like to do is go in here and vignette. I'm going to go to vignette intensity and I'm going to eliminate it. I don't know why. It automatically applies a damn vignette on this. And if the camera has a natural vignette to it, it's going to compound that. So it ends up giving it kind of a tunnel vision look. So the first thing I always do is go in and eliminate the vignette. I mean, if I want to add that later, I can, but just so you know, that's a good way to go about it. So now we have our NDisplay set up. We got our cinema camera associated with it. We need to go ahead and build in the live link connection so we can tie in KOS to the camera. So if you don't, you're probably not going to have this tab here. So what you'll do is you go to Window, and you're going to go to, what is it? Virtual Production and Live Link. And in here you should be able to add a source, and you're going to go to a Live Link 3D source. And since the IP address that I'm using is home, because I'm only using one PC for that, I can leave that there, and I'm just going to hit Add. Now, at this point, it is waiting and listening for a signal to come in and connect. So this is a good time to go ahead and move over to KOS.